welcome on into Falcons Today. On today's show, we're going to talk about a Falcons rookie that no one really seems to be talking about, whether it's from the national media or just Falcons fans and media in general. And we're going to get you guys familiar with someone that could have a big role on this team in 2024. Now, I was looking at the YouTube analytics, though, and I noticed that 50% of you guys watching are not subscribed. Be on the right half of history. Hit the sub button down below. Help us reach 23,000 subscribers before the preseason arrives. Now, let's go over the Falcons draft class really quickly just to refresh everyone's memories, and then we'll look at this mystery rookie that no one seems to be talking about. Round one, of course, was the surprise quarterback selection of Michael Penix. Round two, Clemson defensive tackle Ruke Orhorhoro. Round three, Braylon Trice out of Washington. And then to make a 3 straight defensive lineman, how about Brandon Dorlus from Oregon? Round 5, they went with the local-ish linebacker, originally from the Atlanta area, but Notre Dame is going to college, J.T. Bertrand. Round 6, Alabama running back Jace McClellan. And then round 6 as well, Casey Washington, wideout from Illinois. And then finally, a real local guy from Athens, Zion Logue on the defensive line. But the player I want to highlight and focus on today is the second-round draft pick, Ruke Orhorhoro. Of course, when the draft was going on and the Falcons made the Michael Penix selection, that is all anyone could talk about. And as a result, I think their round 2 pick kind of slipped through the cracks a little bit. So I want you guys to get familiar with Ruke, and then we'll talk about what a reasonable role is for him in 2024 and what I think he is capable of this season. But he is 6'4", 294 pounds. He ran a 4.89 40-yard dash. Now, I don't want you guys to look at 40-yard dashes and think that's the best way to measure defensive linemen. Now, they are never asked to run 40 straight yards, but it is at least a good bar to place in terms of you're nearly 300 pounds and you're running a sub-5 40-yard dash. Like, you could just look at that and know that's an athletic freak, right? That's a rare combination of size, height, and speed that just doesn't come around every single year in the draft. Now, when he was at Clemson, he was kind of buried on the depth chart a little bit, but he was a 3-year starter in his 5 total seasons for the Tigers. The last year was probably his best year, 25 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, and 1 pass breakup. He followed the season before that with a 23 tackle, 8 tackle for loss, and 4 sack campaign. Now, Atlanta's defensive line is kind of headed towards a bit of a turnover because David Onyemata, Grady Jarrett are getting up there in the age column, and you can tell that the Falcons are really prioritizing youth on the defensive line, using a bunch of draft picks on defensive linemen like Ruke and Brandon Dorlus and Zion Logue, right? 3 of their picks were dedicated to the guys up front. Now, when you look at Onyemata and Grady Jarrett, we got to just call it what it is. You got 2 returning defensive tackles over the age of 30, 1 coming off a torn ACL. Do I have to spell it out for you guys? There's a good chance that we see a lot of Ruke Orhorhoro in his first year in the NFL because there's a good chance that Grady Jarrett and Onyemata, whether it's needing a game off here or there to get their body right or just not being able to play at a high level for all 4 quarters for 17 games, they're going to be called on, these young players, probably not early, but probably often throughout the season. So with that, I want you guys to know even more about Ruke and some of his strengths that he brings to the Falcons ball club. So like I said, the short and sweet version is he's big and athletic, right? Every single player's got some pros and cons to them. For Ruke, the number one thing that jumps out to you is just the size and the athleticism. Now, he may not be the greatest athlete to enter the draft, but just because that's the case doesn't mean you can't be a solid starter in this league. He's got a lot of versatility. Clemson tossed him all over the defensive line, which you tend to see in college. Teams will do what's best for themselves, not what's best for the player's draft stock. So if they need him to line up at nose tackle, they'll put him at nose tackle. If they need him at 5 technique, they'll bump him out wide. Now, I did read that he was the consensus best trash talker on the team. So everyone needs a good shit talker. Happy to have another one with Ruke. He also is being noted as one of the best or one of the better run supporters in terms of taking on blocks, whether that means swallowing an offensive lineman or two so the linebackers can do their job, or just throwing them, discarding the blockers to the side, and getting into the backfield. He's really good at run support. Now, I think he did get lost in the mix or lost in the shuffle, so to speak, at Clemson. They've got a lot of really good defensive linemen. Go look at the past few drafts. There are a lot of Clemson DTs going into it. So as a result, he never really had the chance to truly shine and grab the bull by the horns and run with it. But overall, there's a lot to like about Ruke's game. For the pass rushing skills, that's going to need some development. Like, the guy moved from Nigeria to Michigan, I think it was, when he was 8 years old. He didn't grow up playing football his entire life. He kind of was learning it a little bit. I wouldn't say on the fly, given 5 years at Clemson, but there is still a bit of a learning curve that needs to happen for Ruke. And one area specifically that needs to improve is the ability to broaden his pass rushing moves and arsenal. Here's what Dane Brugler from The Athletic had to say before the draft on Ruke Orhorhoro. Orhoro's underdeveloped pass rush instincts and finishing skills cloud his next-level projection, but he displays intriguing movement skills and force at contact to continue getting better and better. He has NFL starting upside with the scheme versatility to play multiple positions both inside and outside. The Atlanta Falcons did not make any big marquee or splash signing on the defensive side of the football in free agency. The coaching staff is betting on themselves to coach up a lot of really young players, whether it's second-year guys like Zach Harrison, Clark Phillips, or DeMarco Helms, or it's a boatload of rookies. This coaching staff has their work cut out for them. Like, they signed Kirk Cousins, and they can just kind of tread water without a problem offensively, right? Kirk Cousins is going to be able to do the job just fine without having a bunch of micromanaging coaches above him. But the defense, it is a young unit. It's also just a mixture of, like, you've got some really good star power in Jesse Bates, A.J. Terrell, and Grady Jarrett. And then there's a bit of a drop-off of really young, inexperienced players like Ruke Orhorhoro. So, Raheem Morris, Jimmy Lake, get after it. Like, turn this young defense that you guys are gambling on yourselves to mold into a formidable unit. Doesn't have to be top 10 this year, right? It's not all in for 2024, but there are high expectations for year one. When you sign a quarterback to $180 million, the belief is you'll be better than 7 wins. And that defense is going to have to be better than it was last year to accomplish that. Now, before we move on to the rest of today's show, what Falcons draft pick were you right on? Like, what's the pick that during the draft you said, that guy's going to be a star, and he ended up being great? Let me know down in the comment section. Don't be afraid to brag about yourself. What pick were you spot on about in a good way? Now, if we take a stroll down memory lane, look at the last few second-round picks by Atlanta. You got some good picks here. Matthew Bergeron, Arnold Ebiketie, 6 sacks last year. I'm hoping for a big season out of him in year 3. Troy Anderson was really solid his rookie year. Unfortunately, only played 2 games in 2023, but high expectations for him going into year 3. Richie Grant ultimately didn't pan out maybe as well as people would have hoped for being a second-round draft pick. Marlon Davidson just flat out didn't work out, but you can do this game with any team in their second-round draft picks. No one bats 1,000 in round 2, let alone even round 1. But I want to take it one step further. And what I did was I looked at the last 4 round 2 defensive tackles and their rookie year, just to kind of give you guys an idea as to what a fair bar would be for what his peers have done. So Javon Dexter was taken in round 2 last year by the Bears out of Florida. 20 tackles, 2.5 sacks as a rookie. Keanu Benton, also a second-round pick last year out of Wisconsin to the Steelers. He's a little bit more of a nose tackle, so not apples to apples to Ruke, but 36 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 sack. Josh Paschal, I believe he went to Kentucky. 16 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Never really caught on much at the Lions. And then Christian Barrymore, he just had a breakout year with the New England Patriots. But back in his rookie season, he had 46 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 1.5 sacks. So there's a lot of ways to evaluate defensive tackles, and unfortunately they are kind of an unsung position because a box score doesn't do it justice for the amount of blocks they eat up from the offensive line to free up other players to do their jobs. So here's what I've kind of got tabbed for Ruke in his rookie year. 20 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. And you know what? Why not a forced fumble at home against the Buccaneers? Just put me down for that right now. But I don't want you guys to have crazy or wild expectations for the young man in his first season. But hopefully we're going to get some good plays out of him because the Falcons defense, is not really in a spot where they can sit back, wait, and develop. Like, that would be the case if they drafted a rookie quarterback, that they did, if they were starting Michael Penix this year, and there was no sense of urgency of you got to win right now. No, when you sign a $180 million quarterback, the ownership has belief and expectations that you're going to start winning right now. Otherwise, what was all that money for? So there will be some pressure placed on these young defensive linemen to produce sooner rather than later. Had they been in another situation, maybe they get a little bit more leash. But for the Falcons, they're going to lean on these guys because they didn't turn to free agency to fill a lot of holes on this defense, right? The Falcons lose their top 2 sack leaders from last year, Calais Campbell and Bud Dupree. Someone's got to fill that void. That's 13 sacks that need to be replaced for a defense that still was not one of the better pass rushing units in football last year. So who do you think will lead the team in sacks, though? You're going to go Arnold Ebiketie, Zach Harrison, or you just want to take the field? Like Grady Jarrett's a good option here. If you think Braylon Trice, the rookie, could lead in his first year, that'd be pretty exciting. But let me know who you think. I'll go with 17, Arnold Ebiketie. Put me down for 7.5 sacks, we'll say, for the former Penn State Nittany Lion. All right, as always, during the summer, we've got some trivia to keep you guys engaged during the slow portion of the offseason. So today's question: arrange these head coaches in order of wins when they were an NFC South head coach. Not their entire careers necessarily, but just when they were the head coach of an NFC South team. So we got Jim Haslett, who was the Saints head coach before Sean Payton. Mike Smith, I hope you guys know. John Fox with the Panthers, and then John Gruden with the Buccaneers. Put those 4 guys in order of wins as an NFC South head coach. Pause the video, think about it. The answer's coming up right now. So John Fox comes in at number 1 with 73. Mike Smith, if you had him at number 2, kudos to you. John Gruden at number 3, and then Jim Haslett at number 4. So that will do it for us on today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Remember, hit the sub button down below. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. If you're already subscribed, you're awesome. You're beautiful. Thank you.